The ship Kethmiran drifted through the cold darkness of space like a wounded animal looking for a place to die. Its metal hull was covered in scorch marks from laser weapons and meteor impacts. Some parts of the ship were held together with emergency patches that glowed a dull orange in the starlight. Inside the ship, the air recyclers wheezed and coughed. Working harder than they were meant to, Commander Zixtella stood on the bridge. Her tall, thin body swaying slightly as the ship's artificial gravity flickered. Her skin was a pale blue color that had grown dimmer over the years. Like all Veltar, she could absorb energy from around her, but there was so little energy left on their dying ship. Her people were slowly starving, and she knew it. "Commander," said her second officer, Keshinari. His voice was weak and tired. "We're approaching the Sol system. The humans' territory." Zixthala nodded slowly. She remembered the first time she had heard about humans. Other species in the galaxy called them primitive. They said humans were barely past their first space flights and knew nothing about the greater universe. But right now, primitive didn't sound so bad. Maybe primitive meant they hadn't learned to hate the Veltar yet. "How many of us are left?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would hurt. 847 souls, Commander. We lost 3 more yesterday." Zixthala closed her eyes. When they had left their homeworld 50 years ago, there had been over 10,000 Veltar on this ship. They had been the last survivors of their entire race. Every year since then, more had died from starvation, sickness, and despair. The Veltar had not always been wanderers. Once, they had lived on a beautiful world called Velthara, where purple seas met golden shores. They had built cities that floated on energy fields and created art from pure light. They had been peaceful traders and explorers, sharing their knowledge with other species across the galaxy. But their gift had become their curse. The Veltar could absorb different types of energy and redirect it. They had evolved this ability to protect themselves from the dangerous radiation of their home star. To them, it was as natural as breathing. To everyone else, it was terrifying. The first time the Galactic Council had called them dangerous was after the Theta Station incident. A young Veltar named Rixtel had been visiting the station for trade talks. During the negotiations, he had grown nervous and accidentally absorbed power from the station's lighting system. The lights had dimmed for just a few seconds, but that was enough. Within hours, news reports across the galaxy were calling the Veltar energy vampires and living weapons. Zixthala had been a junior officer then. She had watched as species after species began to fear them. Trade agreements were cancelled. Diplomatic meetings were refused. When Veltar ships approached space stations, they were turned away at gunpoint. "They drain energy like parasites," the Altruian ambassador had said during the council session that sealed their fate. "Today they take power from our lights. Tomorrow they might drain the life from our bodies. We cannot allow such creatures to roam freely among civilized species." No one had listened when the Veltar tried to explain that they only absorbed energy when they were scared or hungry. No one cared that they had never hurt anyone on purpose. Fear was louder than facts, and the galaxy chose to believe the worst about them. One by one, every civilized world had closed its borders to the Veltar. Even their own homeworld had been taken from them, declared a quarantine zone by the Galactic Council. The last ships had left Velthara, carrying everyone they could save, and they had been wandering ever since. "Commander," Keshinari said, interrupting her memories, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth Traffic Control." Zixthala felt her heart skip a beat. Traffic control meant weapon systems. It meant defensive fleets and demands to leave immediately. She had heard the same cold voices from 100 different worlds. "Put it through," she said, preparing for the usual rejection. The voice that came through the speakers was different than she expected. It was warm, curious, and spoke in the simple trade language that most species used. "Unknown vessel. This is Earth Traffic Control. We show your ship has damage and appears to be in distress. Do you require assistance? Zixthala stared at the communications panel. She looked at Keshinari, who stared back with his mouth open. Around them, other bridge crew members had stopped their work to listen. Did they just... Keshinari started to say. Ask if we needed help, Zixthala finished. She couldn't remember the last time anyone had asked that question. Usually, the first words they heard were, state your business, or leave our system immediately. She activated the communication panel with a trembling hand. Earth Traffic Control, this is the Veltar vessel Kethmiran. We are a refugee ship carrying the last survivors of our people. We request permission to approach your world. There was a pause. Zixthala held her breath, waiting for the rejection she had heard so many times before. Kethmiran, please maintain your current course and speed. We're sending coordinates for a stable orbit around our moon. Medical and support teams are being prepared. Is anyone aboard your ship in immediate danger? Zixthala felt something she had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. Traffic control, she said, her voice catching slightly. Some of our people are very weak. We have been traveling for a long time without proper supplies. Understood, Kethmiran. Priority medical teams are being assembled. You're safe now. Safe. Zixthala repeated the word in her mind. When had they last been safe? When had anyone cared about their medical needs or their supplies? She looked around the bridge at her crew. For the first time in years, she saw something other than despair in their eyes. Keshinari was openly crying, his tears glowing softly blue as they rolled down his cheeks. Attention all hands, Zixthala announced over the ship's communication system. We have received permission to approach the human homeworld. They have offered medical assistance and seem willing to help us. Throughout the ship, tired Veltar lifted their heads. Parents held their children closer. Elders who had given up hope began to wonder if they might see one more sunrise after all died as the Kethmiran slowly changed course toward Earth. Zixthala watched the blue and green world grow larger on their screens. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know if the humans would change their minds once they learned more about the Veltar. But for the first time in 50 years, someone had asked if they needed help. Maybe the humans really were primitive. Maybe they didn't know enough to be afraid. But as Zixthala looked at the beautiful world ahead of them, she thought that if this was what primitive looked like, it was the most wonderful thing she had ever seen. Dr. Sarah Chun floated through the airlock, connecting the human shuttle to the Veltar ship, her medical kit secured to her back. She had volunteered to lead the first contact team, even though her colleagues thought she was crazy. Making first contact with an unknown alien species was dangerous enough. Making first contact with refugees who had been rejected by the entire galaxy seemed like a recipe for disaster. But Sarah had always believed that medicine was about helping those who needed it most. And right now, nobody needed help more than the people on this ship. The airlock cycled through its sequence, and Sarah stepped aboard the Kethmiran. The first thing that hit her was the smell. It wasn't bad, exactly, but it was different. Like ozone after a lightning storm, mixed with something sweet and metallic. The second thing she noticed was how dim everything was. The corridor lights flickered weakly, as if the ship was trying to save every bit of power it could. Commander Zixthala was waiting for her, along with two other Veltar who stood slightly behind their leader. Sarah had seen pictures of the Veltar in the galactic databases, but seeing them in person was different. They were tall and graceful, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Their large eyes were a deep purple color, and their movements were slow and careful, like people who were very tired. Dr. Chun, Zixthala said in accented but clear English. I am Commander Zixthala. Thank you for coming aboard our ship. I must warn you, some of our people are unwell. Sarah nodded. That's why I'm here, Commander. To help however I can. Can you show me to your medical bay? As they walked through the ship, Sarah tried not to show her shock at what she saw. The Veltar they passed looked exhausted and sick. Many were sitting or lying down, their skin much paler than it should be. Children clung to their parents, their eyes too large in their thin faces. This wasn't just a refugee ship. This was a ship full of people who were slowly dying. How long have you been traveling? Sarah asked quietly. 53 Earth years, Zixthale replied. We have been looking for a world that would accept us. 53 years. Sarah could barely imagine it. These people had been wandering through space longer than she had been alive, rejected by world after world. The medical bay was larger than Sarah had expected, but it was also nearly empty. Most of the advanced equipment had either broken down or been traded away for food and fuel. A few Veltar medics were tending to patients on simple beds, doing what they could with almost nothing. This is Dr. Velkara, Zixthala said, introducing Sarah to an elderly Veltar woman. She has been our chief medical officer for 20 years. Dr. Velkara looked up at Sarah with tired eyes. Human doctor, she said slowly. You risk much by coming here. My people are dangerous, according to the galaxy. Sarah set down her medical kit and opened it. Dr. Velkara, I'm a doctor. My job is to help sick people, not judge them. Now, can you tell me what the main health problems are on this ship? For the next several hours, Sarah worked alongside the Veltar medical staff. She quickly learned that the main problem was energy starvation. The Veltar needed to absorb different types of energy to survive, like humans needed food. But their ship's power systems were failing, and there wasn't enough energy for everyone. The younger Veltar were especially affected. Sarah met a child named Kestar, who couldn't have been more than 10 years old in human terms. The child was so weak that their skin was almost white instead of blue, and they could barely lift their head. Can you help? Kestar's parent asked Sarah desperately. We have lost so many children already. Sarah knelt down beside the small bed. I'm going to try, she said gently. She turned to Dr. Velkara. If I brought portable power units from our ship, would that help? Dr. Velkara's eyes widened. You would share your energy with us? But that is what the galaxy fears most about us. They say we steal energy from others. I'm not giving it to you, Sarah said with a smile. I'm sharing it with you. There's a difference. Within an hour, Sarah had contacted her shuttle and arranged for several portable fusion batteries to be brought over. When the Veltar saw the human technicians carrying the power units, many of them began to cry. They had expected the humans to be afraid, to keep their distance, to treat them like the monsters the galaxy said they were. Instead, the humans were bringing them exactly what they needed to survive. Sarah watched as Dr. Velkara carefully connected one of the power units to a device that would let the weakest Veltar absorb energy safely. Almost immediately, young Kestar's skin began to return to its normal blue color. The child sat up for the first time in days and smiled. Better? Sarah asked. Kestar nodded eagerly and said something in the Veltar language. Dr. Velkara translated. They say thank you for making the hurting stop. Sarah felt her eyes getting wet. Tell them they're welcome. Later, Sarah was invited to meet with the ship's senior staff in what had once been a conference room. Commander Zixthala sat at the head of a worn metal table, with other officers arranged around her. They all looked much better now that power was being restored to their ship. Dr. Chun, Zixthala began, I must ask you something that I have asked many others over the years. What do you know about my people? Sarah had read the galactic databases before coming aboard. She knew what other species said about the Veltar. I know that other species are afraid of your energy absorption abilities. I know you've been exiled from the Galactic Council. I know you're considered dangerous." Zixthala nodded sadly. "And what do you think now that you have met us?" Sarah looked around the room at the tired faces watching her. "I think you're people who've been hurt badly by fear and prejudice. I think you've been wandering for over 50 years looking for a home. And I think that any species that would turn away sick children because they're afraid is not as civilized as they claim to be." There was silence around the table. Then, one of the younger officers began to speak rapidly in the Veltar language. Zixthala held up a hand to quiet them. "Officer Nextal says that you are the first person from another species to call us people instead of creatures or threats." Zixthala translated. "They want to know why." Sarah thought about it for a moment. "Because you are people. You have families and children. You have doctors and officers and engineers. You take care of your sick and protect your young. You ask for permission before entering someone else's space. Those are the things people do. But we can absorb energy from your equipment," Zixthala said. "We could drain power from your ship if we wanted to. And I could poison your water supply if I wanted to," Sarah replied. "Humans are very good at making weapons out of almost anything. But wanting to do something and actually doing it are very different things. You've had chances to take our energy, but you haven't. That tells me more about who you are than any database entry." Commander Zixthala was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was very soft. "Dr. Chun, in 53 years of wandering, you are the first person to see us as we truly are instead of what others fear we might become." Sarah smiled. "Well, I have a feeling my people are going to surprise you. Humans can be pretty good at ignoring what everyone else thinks when we believe something is right." As Sarah prepared to return to her shuttle to report back to Earth, young Kestar ran up to her. The child was moving normally now, their skin bright blue and healthy. They said something in their own language and handed Sarah a small crystal that glowed with soft light. "They made it for you," Dr. Volcara explained. "It is a light crystal made from stored energy. In our culture, it is a gift given to someone who brings hope." Sarah carefully took the crystal, feeling its warmth in her hands. "Tell them I'll treasure it always." As she floated back through the airlock to her shuttle, Sarah was already thinking about her report to Earth Command. She would tell them about the medical needs, the power requirements, and the logistics of helping nearly 850 refugees. But most of all, she would tell them about the people she had met. People who had been cast out by the galaxy for 53 years, but had never given up hope that someone, somewhere, would see them for who they really were. People who had just found their first real friend in over half a century. 3 months had passed since the Kethmaran entered Earth's orbit, and the planet below had become a very different place. In cities across the world, humans were learning to live alongside their new Veltar neighbors. It wasn't always easy, but it was working better than anyone had expected. Marcus Wright wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked at the latest prototype. He was an engineer from Detroit, and for the past 6 weeks, he had been working with a team of Veltar technicians to solve what everyone called the absorption problem. When Veltar got scared, excited, or even just surprised, they automatically absorbed energy from whatever was nearby. This had caused several power outages in the early days of integration. "Okay, Zikanar, try the new vest," Marcus said to his Veltar partner. Zikanar was young for a Veltar, maybe 30 in human years, with bright blue skin and an eagerness to learn that reminded Marcus of his own son. The absorption vest they had developed together looked like a simple piece of clothing, but it was woven with special fibers that could store and regulate energy flow. Zikanar slipped the vest on and nodded. "Ready for test." Marcus activated a small electrical device that made a loud, sudden noise. In the early days, This would have caused Zikiner to involuntarily absorb power from the nearby equipment. But this time, the vest glowed slightly as it absorbed the excess energy that Zikiner's body released, storing it safely instead of letting it drain from the building's power grid. It worked. Marcus shouted, and Zikiner's face lit up with a smile. No more accidents, Zekner said happily. No more making lights go dark when I am startled. This small breakthrough was happening in dozens of labs and workshops around the world. Humans and Veltar were working together to solve practical problems, and both species were learning from each other. The Veltar's natural understanding of energy had already led to improvements in human power systems, while human engineering was helping the Veltar control abilities they had never been able to manage before. In a small town in rural Kansas, 12-year-old Emma Chun was teaching her new friend Kestar how to play baseball. Emma was Dr. Sarah Chun's daughter, and she had been one of the first human children to meet a young Veltar. The friendship that developed between them had become famous around the world. No, you're holding the bat too tight, Emma said patiently. Just relax your grip a little. Kestar adjusted their hands on the bat. The young Veltar had been living with Emma's family for 2 months now, and their English had improved dramatically. Like this, Emma? Perfect. Now remember, keep your eye on the ball. Emma pitched the ball gently toward home plate. Kestar swung the bat and connected with a solid crack. The ball flew over the heads of the other children playing in the field, and Kestar jumped up and down with excitement. I did it. I hit the ball. Home run, Emma shouted, running to give her friend a hug. What made this scene even more remarkable was that both children were wearing the new absorption vests that Marcus Wright's team had developed. When Kestar got excited, the vest glowed softly blue as it absorbed the excess energy, but the game continued without any power problems. The other children barely noticed anymore. To them, Kestar was just another kid who was learning to play baseball. This was happening in schools around the world. Veltar children were learning human languages, human games, and human customs. But they were also teaching human children about their own culture. Kestar had shown Emma how to create light crystals from stored energy, and now both children made them together as gifts for their families. The integration wasn't without problems. In New York City, protests had broken out when a group of Veltar refugees first arrived. Some humans were afraid, just like the other species in the galaxy had been. Signs reading "Aliens go home" and "Protect human energy" appeared at rallies. But for every protest, there were 10 counter-protests. Humans carrying signs that read "Welcome to Earth" and "Energy shared is energy doubled" far outnumbered those who wanted the Veltar to leave. The counter-protesters included many people who had never even met a Veltar, but believed that Earth should be a place of welcome for those in need. Dr. Sarah Chun found herself in the middle of many of these discussions. As she continued her work with Veltar medical teams, she had become one of Earth's leading experts on Veltar biology, working closely with Dr. Velkara to develop new treatments for both species. The absorption process is actually very similar to how humans process vitamins, Sarah explained to a room full of journalists. Veltar need different types of energy, the way we need different nutrients. They're not draining anything that we can't easily replace. One reporter raised her hand. But Dr. Chen, what about the reports of power failures in cities where Veltar are living? Sarah nodded. There have been some incidents, especially in the first few weeks. But we've learned that these happen mainly when Veltar individuals are stressed or afraid. We've developed clothing that helps them control the process, and we're also working to make sure they feel welcome and safe. Stress-related absorption has dropped by over 90% in communities where integration programs are working well. What Sarah didn't mention in her press conference was how much the Veltar were giving back. In California, A team of Veltar engineers had helped design a new type of solar panel that was 30% more efficient than anything humans had built before. In Norway, Veltar weather specialists were working with human scientists to better predict and manage storms. Their natural ability to sense energy patterns in the atmosphere was proving invaluable for climate research. Perhaps most importantly, the Veltar were sharing their culture. In the evenings, many communities hosted gatherings where Veltar elders would tell stories of their homeworld, their history, and their journey through the stars. Human audiences listened and wondered at tales of floating cities and art made from pure light. Commander Zixthala had become something of a celebrity herself. She split her time between the Kethmiran, which was being repaired and upgraded with human technology, and various human cities where she served as an ambassador for her people. Tonight, she was in Geneva, addressing the United Nations General Assembly. "Honored representatives," Zixthala said, standing at the podium where so many human leaders had spoken before her. "When my people first approached your world, we expected nothing. We had been rejected by every civilization in the galaxy. We came to Earth because we had nowhere else to go." The assembly hall was completely quiet. Delegates from every human nation listened to the first alien ever to address the UN. What we found here was something we had almost forgotten existed: compassion. Your people saw us not as threats to be eliminated, but as refugees to be helped. You shared your energy, your homes, your very lives with us. You asked for nothing in return, except that we try to be good neighbors. Zixthala paused, looking out over the sea of human faces. In our wandering, we learned that the galaxy is full of species who claim to be civilized. But your species has shown us what civilization truly means. It means choosing hope over fear. It means seeing potential instead of threat. It means believing that differences can make us stronger rather than weaker. When she finished speaking, the entire assembly rose to their feet in applause. Zixthala felt her skin glow slightly brighter, a Veltar sign of deep emotion. Later that evening, Zixthala walked through the streets of Geneva with Admiral Rebecca Martinez, who had become a close friend over the past months. The city was alive with activity, and in the crowds they could see humans and Veltar walking together, talking and laughing. "Your people have given mine something more precious than energy or shelter," Zixthala said. "You have given us hope. For 53 years, we believed we were unwanted in this universe. Now we know that we simply hadn't found the right place yet." Admiral Martinez smiled. "You know, Commander, I think you've given us something pretty valuable too. You've shown us what we can be at our best. Not everyone gets a chance to be the species that does the right thing when it matters most." As they walked, they passed a small park where human and Veltar children were playing together under the streetlights. The sound of laughter echoed through the night air, and the light crystals that some of the children carried made the park glow like something from a fairy tale. "Earth took us in," Zixthala said softly, watching the children play. "But I think we're all building something new together. Something better than either of our peoples could create alone." Admiral Martinez nodded. "Welcome home, Commander." For the first time in over 50 years, Zixthala truly felt like she was. The message came through on every communication channel Earth possessed, overriding normal broadcasts and emergency systems alike. Ambassador Dexnari of the Ultrian hierarchy appeared on screens across the planet, her golden skin gleaming and her forearms spread wide in what humans would learn was a gesture of authority. "People of Earth," her voice echoed in flawless English, though her tone was cold and sharp. "You have made a grave error. You have given sanctuary to a species that was rightfully exiled for the safety of all civilized worlds. The Veltar are not refugees. They are living weapons that will drain your world dry and turn on you the moment it serves their purposes. President Elena Vasquez sat in the Situation Room deep beneath the White House, watching the transmission alongside military leaders, scientists, and diplomats. Around the world, similar scenes were playing out in capitals from Beijing to London to Nairobi. You have 24 of your Earth hours to surrender all Veltar individuals to Galactic Council custody, Vexnari continued. If you refuse, the Council will consider Earth to be harboring dangerous criminals, and we will act accordingly to protect galactic civilization. The transmission ended, leaving President Vasquez and her advisors in heavy silence. Finally, General Patterson spoke up. Madam President, our intelligence suggests the Ultrarians have at least 50 ships in the outer system. The Korthali Empire has 30 more arriving within hours. We're looking at a combined fleet of over 100 vessels with technology far beyond anything we possess. President Vasquez nodded grimly. She had known this day might come from the moment Dr. Chun's first report reached her desk. Earth's decision to help the Veltar refugees had always carried the risk of galactic retaliation. What do our guests think? She asked, referring to the Veltar leadership. Commander Zixthala entered the room with Dr. Chun, both of them looking strained. Zixthala had been on Earth for official meetings when the message came through, and the weight of the situation showed clearly on her face. Madam President, Zixthala said formally, my people are prepared to leave immediately. We will not allow Earth to suffer because of our presence. We knew this day would come eventually. Absolutely not, President Vasquez replied without hesitation. Commander, your people came to us seeking help, and we gave our word that they would be safe here. That word still stands. With respect, Madam President, General Patterson interjected, we're talking about a military force that could easily destroy every major city on Earth. Maybe we should consider General, the President said firmly. Are you suggesting we hand over nearly 850 refugees, including children, to people who have already proven they have no intention of treating them fairly? Dr. Chun leaned forward. Madam President, I spent months working with the Veltar. These are not the monsters the galaxy believes them to be. They're families. They're doctors and teachers and engineers. They're people who have done nothing wrong except exist in a way that makes others afraid. Commander Zixthala's skin dimmed with distress. Dr. Chun, you cannot ask your entire species to risk war for us. We are only 800. You are billions. The mathematics is clear. President Vasquez stood up, her decision already made. Commander, let me tell you something about human mathematics. We don't calculate the worth of a person based on numbers. We don't hand over children to appease bullies. And we sure as hell don't abandon people who have become our neighbors and friends. Within hours, Earth's response was broadcast on every frequency the planet could reach. President Vasquez stood at a podium in the White House press room, with Commander Zixthala beside her and representatives from dozens of nations watching from the gallery. To the Galactic Council, President Vasquez began, looking directly into the cameras. Earth has received your ultimatum, and our answer is simple: no. The words echoed around the world and across the solar system. In living rooms and town squares, humans stopped what they were doing to listen. The Veltar came to us as refugees seeking help, and they found it. In the months since their arrival, they have proven themselves to be peaceful, productive members of our global community. They are doctors working in our hospitals, engineers improving our technology, teachers sharing their culture with our children, and children playing in our parks. President Vasquez paused, her voice growing stronger. You call them weapons. We call them neighbors. You call them dangerous. We call them friends. You demand their surrender. We offer them our protection. Behind her, Commander Zixthala stood straighter, her skin glowing slightly brighter as she listened to words no Veltar had heard in over 50 years. Earth stands ready to defend any person within our protection, regardless of their species or origin," the president continued. "If the Galactic Council believes that compassion is a crime and that helping refugees makes us criminals, then so be it. We would rather be criminals with our conscience clean than civilized with blood on our hands." The broadcast continued with statements of support from world leaders. Prime Minister Jiang of China declared that humanity stands united in its commitment to protecting those who seek our help. President Okafor of Nigeria announced that the Earth will not bow to threats from those who choose fear over compassion. Even former enemies spoke with one voice when it came to defending the Veltar refugees, but it wasn't just the politicians. Across the planet, ordinary humans were taking to the streets in massive demonstrations of support. In New York's Times Square, over 1 million people gathered carrying signs reading "Earth for Everyone" and "Welcome Home." In London, human children and Veltar children stood together holding hands as their parents chanted, "Not one step back." In Tokyo, a crowd of protesters formed the human and Veltar chain around the Parliament building, vowing to protect their new neighbors. Young Emma Chun stood with her friend Kestar at one of the rallies in Kansas City, both of them wearing their absorption vests and holding a sign that read, "Friends Forever," in both English and Veltar script. "Are you scared?" Emma asked her friend as they watched the crowd around them grow larger. Kes single quotes. Tar thought for a moment. "A little, but not of your people. I am scared that the bad ships will hurt humans because of us." "Don't worry," Emma said with the confidence that only a 12-year-old could have. "My mom says humans are really good at protecting people they care about. And we care about you." Meanwhile, in orbit around Earth, the Kethmaran had become the center of a different kind of demonstration. Hundreds of Veltar had volunteered to return to space and surrender themselves to the Galactic Council fleet, hoping to spare Earth from retaliation. But they weren't alone. Dozens of human civilian ships had launched to join them, forming a protective wall around the Veltar vessel. Captain Torres of the research ship New Horizons opened a channel to the Kethmaran. "Commander Zixtala, this is Captain Maria Torres representing the Earth Civilian Defense Fleet. We're here to make sure you don't have to face this alone." Similar scenes were playing out across the solar system. Human mining ships, research vessels, and even converted cargo haulers had launched to join the defense. They were vastly outgunned by the Galactic Council fleet, but they flew side by side with the ship that had brought the Veltar to Earth. Zixtala stood on the bridge of her ship, looking at the tactical display that showed human vessels surrounding them. Her second officer, Keshinari, was openly weeping. "Commander," he said through his tears, "in 53 years of exile, no one has ever stood with us. Now an entire species is willing to face the galactic powers for our sake. How do we deserve such loyalty?" Zixtala watched as more human ships continued to arrive, their pilots volunteering for what could easily become a suicidal mission. "We don't deserve it, Keshinari. But that's what makes it so precious. They're not protecting us because we've earned it. They're protecting us because it's who they are." On the surface of Earth, President Vasquez received reports of the growing civilian fleet with a mixture of pride and concern. She knew that most of those ships wouldn't survive if the Galactic Council decided to attack. But she also knew that trying to stop them would be impossible. When humans decided to protect someone, they protected them with everything they had. "Madam President," her communications director announced, "we're receiving thousands of messages of support from human colonies throughout the solar system. Mars base, Europa Station, the asteroid mining platforms, they're all declaring their support for the Veltar refugees. And the Galactic Council fleet? Holding position at the edge of the system. No response to our broadcast yet." President Vasquez nodded. The next few hours would determine whether Earth's act of compassion would lead to peace or war. But as she looked out the window at the night sky, where she knew human and Veltar ships were flying together in defiance of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, she felt a deep sense of pride. Earth had chosen its path. Now they would see if the rest of the galaxy had the courage to choose a better one. In homes across the planet, families gathered around their screens, waiting to see what would happen next. Human parents held their children close, while Veltar families felt hope and terror in equal measure. Everyone understood that the next few hours would change the galaxy forever. The Galactic Council fleet hung in space like a collection of metal predators, their weapons trained on Earth and the small collection of human ships that had formed around the Kethmira. Ambassador Thexnari stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominant Will, watching the tactical displays with growing frustration. "Admiral Keshful," she said to the Ulturian military commander, "why haven't we simply destroyed the primitive vessels and taken the Veltar into custody?" Admiral Keshful was an old soldier who had fought in 3 galactic wars. His scarred face showed doubt as he looked at the display. "Ambassador, something about this situation feels wrong." "Wrong? We are enforcing galactic law. Look at the transmissions coming from that planet," the Admiral said, activating the communication array. "Every channel is broadcasting something different." What they heard was unlike anything the Galactic Council had encountered before. Instead of the usual diplomatic protests or military threats, Earth was broadcasting stories. Thousands of them. Human families talking about their Veltar neighbors. Veltar children speaking about their new friends. Doctors discussing medical breakthroughs achieved through cooperation. Engineers explaining joint technological projects. "This is the Chun family from Kansas," came one transmission. "Our daughter Emma has been friends with a young Veltar named Kestar for 3 months now. They play together, study together, and help each other with homework." Kestar taught Emma how to create light crystals, and Emma taught Kestar how to play baseball. "Please don't take our friend away from us." Another transmission showed an elderly human man and a Veltar elder sitting together in a park. "My name is Robert Martinez, and this is my friend Velfana. She's been telling me stories about her homeworld for weeks now. Beautiful stories about cities that floated on energy and art made from pure light. She's also been helping me design a new power system for our local hospital. Why would anyone want to exile someone so wise and kind?" Ambassador Thexnari cut off the transmissions angrily. "Propaganda. They're trying to manipulate us with emotional appeals." But Admiral Keshful was looking at other reports flooding in from across the galaxy. News organizations were broadcasting Earth's story to every civilized world. The images of humans and Veltar working together. Children of both species playing in the same parks. Families sharing meals and celebrations. "Ambassador," the Admiral said quietly, "my own homeworld is receiving these transmissions. My daughter just sent me a message asking why we're threatening people who are helping refugees." Similar conversations were happening on ships throughout the Galactic Council fleet. Soldiers and officers who had been told they were protecting civilization were watching children laugh together and families embrace across species lines. They were seeing cooperation instead of conquest. Friendship instead of exploitation. On the bridge of the research vessel Clarity of Purpose, Captain Nex Mara of the Deltan Republic was having her own crisis of faith. She had joined the fleet because the Council had said it was necessary to protect the galaxy from the Veltar threat. But everything she was seeing from Earth suggested the opposite. "Communications officer," she said, "open a channel to Earth traffic control." "Captain?" her first officer asked in surprise. "We're not authorized to communicate with the humans independently." "I don't care about authorization," Captain Nexmara replied. "I want to hear their side of the story directly." Within minutes, she was speaking to Admiral Martinez aboard Earth's orbital defense station. Admiral Martinez, This is Captain Nexmara of the Deltan vessel Clarity of Purpose. I need to ask you something directly. Have the Veltar ever threatened Earth or its people? Admiral Martinez's response was immediate and clear. Captain, in the 4 months they've been here, the only threat the Veltar have posed is to our assumptions about what aliens might be like. They've been model citizens, better neighbors than some humans I know, and they've contributed more to our society than most people contribute in a lifetime. But surely there have been incidents? Power drains? Equipment failures? A few minor accidents in the early days, mostly when individuals were scared or startled. We developed technology to help with that. Captain, I've got to ask, have you ever met a Veltar personally? Captain Nexmara paused. No. All our information comes from Council intelligence reports. Would you like to? An hour later, something unprecedented was happening in the space around Earth. Captain Nexmara's ship had broken formation with the Council fleet and approached the Kethmiran under a flag of truce. She and a small diplomatic team had been invited aboard the Veltar vessel. Commander Zixthala met them at the airlock, accompanied by Dr. Chun and several other human representatives. Captain Nexmara was surprised by her first impression of the Veltar commander. She had expected someone intimidating and dangerous. Instead, she met a tired, dignified woman who reminded her of her own grandmother. Captain Nexmara, Zixthala said formally, "Welcome aboard the Kethmiran. We are honored by your visit, though we understand the difficult position it places you in." Commander, Captain Nexmara replied, "I came here because what I'm seeing doesn't match what we were told about your people. I need to understand the truth." For the next 2 hours, Captain Nexmara toured the ship. She met Veltar families, spoke with children, and saw the cultural artifacts that the refugees had preserved through 50 years of wandering. She learned about their history, their exile, and their peaceful integration into Earth society. Most importantly, she met young Kestar, who had been brought up to the ship for the meeting. "You are the captain of a very big ship," Kestar said to her in careful but clear Deltan. "Did you come to take us away?" Captain Nexmara knelt down to the child's level. I came here because I needed to see for myself what kind of people you are. Are we good people?" Kestar asked innocently. Looking into the child's large purple eyes, Captain Nexmara felt something break inside her chest. "Yes, little one. You are very good people." When she returned to her ship, Captain Nexmara immediately sent a message to her government. Within hours, the Deltan Republic announced its withdrawal from the Council fleet and its intention to open diplomatic relations with Earth. 3 other species followed suit over the next day, but the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Young Kestar had asked Dr. Chun if they could send a message to the ships that wanted to take them away. With their parents' permission and some help with translation, Kestar recorded a simple video that Earth broadcast on all frequencies. The message was broadcast in 17 different galactic languages. But the content was simple: a child standing in a park on Earth, speaking directly to the camera. "My name is Kestar, and I am Veltar. I know you are afraid of my people because others told you we are dangerous. But I want you to know that we are just people like you. We have families and friends. We like to play games and learn new things. We miss our old home, but Earth has given us a new home." Kestar held up a light crystal that glowed softly in their small hands. "This is called a hope crystal. We make them when we are happy. I made this one because the humans were kind to us when no one else would be. They shared their food and their energy and their friendship with us. They didn't try to make us into something different. They just let us be ourselves." The child's eyes were bright with unshed tears as they continued. "The galaxy cast us out because they were afraid of what we might become. Earth welcomed us and showed us what we could become. Please don't make us leave our new home. Please don't hurt the humans who helped us. They are good people, and they deserve to be safe and happy just like everyone else." The message ended with Castor placing the Hope Crystal on a small table and walking away. But the crystal continued to glow, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. The impact was immediate and galaxy-wide. On dozens of worlds, people gathered to watch the message from the Veltar child. Many species that had supported the Council's actions began to question their position. Protests erupted on Altarian worlds, demanding an end to the threat against Earth. Even the rigid Courtly Empire saw demonstrations calling for peaceful resolution. Ambassador Vexnari watched her coalition crumble as species after species withdrew from the fleet. By the end of the second day, she had fewer than 30 ships left, and even some of those were showing signs of wavering support. The final blow came from her own people. The Altarian Council of Elders sent a direct message ordering her to stand down and begin immediate negotiations with Earth for a peaceful resolution. Standing alone on her flagship's bridge, Ambassador Vexnari faced the truth that her entire worldview had been challenged by a child's simple honesty and humanity's moral courage. President Vasquez received the Council's request for negotiations with quiet satisfaction. The talks were held aboard a neutral space station with representatives from Earth, the Veltar refugees, and the remaining Council species. But the negotiations were really just a formality. The galaxy had seen what Earth offered, and many species wanted to be part of it. Within a month, Earth had been invited to join the Galactic Council, not as a junior member, but as a moral leader. The Kethmirun was transformed from a refugee ship into something new, the first Earth-Veltar joint research vessel.